South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa appointing a new finance minister, Tito Mboweni, the man who retired as the first black Reserve Bank governor in 2009. In 2 weeks, he will deliver his first midterm budget, and the day after, the country will host an investment summit where it hopes to get over 1,000 delegates interested in investing in the country. Joining me now to discuss these issues further, Trudi Makhaya, she's President Cyril Ramaphosa's economic advisor, and Gossel, senior finance lecturer, UCT Graduate School of Business. Both, thank you for coming through. Trudi, I'm going to begin with you and ask how, in your view, you see the new finance minister aiding the effort to try to get more investment into the country and the work that you do.
Well, I mean, there are various processes in play to try and get the economy back on the right path. So, you know, President announced a stimulus and recovery plan a few weeks ago. We've had a job summit with commitments coming out of that. We have the medium-term budget and the investment conference. So there are lots of initiatives that I think need good stewardship. You know, you need a good custodian who will ensure that fiscal policy is aligned and supports all of these initiatives. And, you know, from that perspective, I think the new finance minister will be instrumental in that.
Absolutely. Before we get deep into that discussion, let's take a look at the record of the man.
Most agree that new Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is a safe pair of hands. He ticks many more boxes. Mboweni grew up in Tzaneen in Limpopo, with deep roots in South Africa's liberation movement, going into political exile in 1980. He certainly knows his way around government departments. In the 10 years he spent as South Africa's first black Reserve Bank governor, he often struggled against headwinds in what was then a very conservative organisation. He distinguished himself drawing on sage advisers from business. He held a tight line in monetary policy with inflation targeting, and in his time the South African economy grew strongly. Mboweni has wide international experience and knows how to talk to the money men and donors alike. His innate caution also helped South Africa weather the global financial crisis. When the banks presented to him the fashionable, complex debt instruments that proved the downfall of so many financial institutions, he said no. Mboweni told CNBC Africa last month that he simply didn't understand the debt instruments, so he wasn't going to allow them. A decision that saved South African banks millions in losses.
The question can be asked, why was the situation the case that South African banks were not as heavily affected? And the simple answer is that we did not allow some of those products to be traded here because we didn't understand them. My basic approach was a basic Tzaneen approach. If I don't understand something, I cannot give approval for it. Thank God I didn't understand the damn thing. And so growing up in Tzaneen helps because you're kind of slower, you know, in understanding these complex issues. But it saved the situation.
Now South Africa's struggling economy looks to Mboweni for policy and clear direction that will lead to growth.
I bet you will be talking more about the Tzaneen doctrine in the days and years to come. Let's take a quick look at what they are saying on the streets of Sandton.
I think it's cool. Maybe it's the fact that he's the class of 96, maybe. You know, politically in 96 things were still rosy. And with him comes that, you know, that sort of feel that maybe things will get into order. You know, that's your Nelson Mandela's era and all that. Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm happy about it. I think we should just be positive about it.
I think it's actually very good for the country at the point where we are right now, because it's a man who experienced, like, you know, he has experience in the field, you know what I mean? So whatever he's bringing, I hope it's for the better, but I have confidence personally in him.
Because of his great experience in the financial industry, and I remember he was the president of the Reserve Bank, am I right? I'm not sure, but I think it's a good appointment. He's matured. I think with the greediness that we see and all the chaos we see in the cabinet and in the government, so I think he's matured and he's going to be able to bring stability in terms of the markets and the economy of the country. So I'm happy, yeah.
Yeah, so Tito Mboweni was right to be a Minister of Finance because of everything was doing. It was good. He's never been with what was scandals or whatever it is. He was a good guy. I really love that guy.
I think it's a step in the right direction. He proved himself at the Reserve Bank, and I think he'll do a pretty good job here. Remains to be seen, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
It's okay that we have someone like Tito Mboweni who has no other controversial taints on him. When he was the Reserve Bank, when he was appointed in the Reserve Bank, he did quite a nice job. So as long as these authorities, they don't abuse their powers and they serve the people on the ground, then it's okay. At the end of the day, as we all know, people must be served and people must not go starving.
Positive vibes all around. Sean, if I can come to you here, is that something that you share, that this guy brings in, number one, the maturity that people are talking about, and also that the experience that he has in the financial industry will stand him in good stead?
Yes, I do believe so. His background and his history clearly indicate that. And I think also another aspect associated with that in this highly politicized environment that we're enduring at the moment is he's not closely aligned or easily identifiable with any particular ANC faction as well. So it does make it easier, therefore, to engage across the different lines within the governing party when setting new policy, etc.
Yeah. What will he add, do you think, to the drive that Trudi was talking about earlier, the 1.2 trillion that the president is looking for, and I think 100,000 jobs that he is looking to create by attracting in foreign direct investment into the country as well as local investment?
Well, directly, there's very little that he can do, but it does create renewed certainty and optimism in the sense that we have a finance minister that effectively we can trust. Minister Nene was doing a good job, all indications are, and he's tendered his resignation, so it's effectively to clear his name, which is very, very unusual in South Africa's political circles. So it would be interesting to see whether his name is eventually cleared or additional information comes out about the meetings which have given rise to all the problems relating to the Guptas. But I do believe that the movements we've seen in the market indicate that the market, international investors, view Tito's placement very positively.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you and talk a little bit about the differences between the two men. Trudi, just perhaps remind us again, for the upcoming investment summit that you are helping to organize and coordinate, what are the key messages that you are driving there? Because certainly one thing that this country is struggling with is growth, and the rating agencies have marked that as one of the key indicators that they are looking for if they are not perhaps to downgrade the country further. So just remind us again, what are you guys pitching?
So we're pitching various things. I mean, I think we have a very strong and robust economy, which over the past 10 years or so has hit stagnation. We're going to outline a series of reforms that have taken place over the past 6 months, right, and also those upcoming, that show that there's been significant progress in unlocking some of the challenges that had been hindering growth and investment. Yeah. So we'll refer to the stimulus package and how that's going to contribute to growth in the short to medium term. Mm-hmm. We'll refer to the job summit and to show how civil society, government, business, and labor all got together to agree on some crucial reforms and how they have a phase 2 to look at broader policy issues coming up. We'll also refer to other announcements that the president will make. Yeah. At the same time, we'll also have businesses demonstrating why they invest in South Africa. So we'll have multinationals laying out their experience, obviously not all rosy, but clearly showing that there is an investment case in a growing emerging market, which is increasingly integrated with the rest of the continent and which is upscaling its capabilities in global value chains. Yeah, and I imagine one of the conversations you're going to have, and it's certainly, I'm sure, a question that is going to come up, is around this whole issue of land reform. What message are you carrying there? that we have an orderly process that will look at all the elements of land reform. Recall that it's about land restitution, land redistribution, and security of tenure. And all of those require different kinds of instruments and different kinds of policies. Expropriation without compensation is a sliver. It's just one potential instrument that talks to that program. But of course, if you're talking about security of tenure, give people proper rights to the property they already occupy. If so we have to look at the whole picture and all the instruments that are, but emphasizing it's a process, it's law and order, it's constitutional, and it's consultative.
Absolutely. Sean, you don't often get a chance to have the ear of the president's economic advisor. Here you are. Please help here in terms of some of the messages that she should be delivering, or that the president and his team can be delivering at this investment summit.
Well, I'm glad that Trudi mentioned about security of tenure, because I think that among the noise that we have at the moment from a variety of sources about the possible expropriation and changing Section 25, the security of tenure, besides the social justice side of land restitution, has the potential to stimulate SME development in this country. Because people can't have SMEs unless they have security of tenure. They need a place to start businesses. So I sincerely hope that SME development gets tied to security of tenure and to liberalization of South Africa's SME regulations, which unfortunately choke SMEs rather than stimulate SMEs. And I really think that we have a golden opportunity to really start shifting our economy away from the corporatist heritage that we've endured for many decades, from pre-1994, post-1994. We still, unfortunately, are a corporatist-run economy. And we can't sustain that if we want to absorb all the unemployed people that we have in this country. We need to develop on a massive scale SMEs.
Sean, is that another way of saying that we have too many big companies in South Africa's economic space?
Not necessarily. I think actually we have too few. It's just we have too few corporates who can absorb labor, but more importantly, we have even fewer robust SME sectors.
Right. Okay. So before you go, one more question. Does Tito Mboweni add to the national treasury? In other words, I'm asking a direct question here. Is he a better man, do you think, going forward than Nhlanhla Nene?
I'd say yes, for the simple reason that there's institutional memory that he brings with him, particularly during the years that he was involved in the senior levels of government. It's a very different time in South Africa's history to what we're facing now. And as a result, he brings with him solutions and means and ways of energizing the financial sector of government that I don't think we would have from anybody else.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Trudi, before we end the discussion, from your perspective, what did you consider a successful summit when you finished the day on that day?
I think we would have shown the case for investing in South Africa. I think we would have progressed in terms of the investment announcements that would be made to show, a portfolio of investments. I think the secret will also be about the post-conference engagement, where we have investors that we walk through the journey with them, from conference to checkbook to actual factories being open, both local and international, of course. So I think ultimately the success is seeing plants, factories, jobs created.
And I suppose from your perspective, it's a lot of listening as well that you'll be doing in addition to pitching your message.
Indeed. So we've been receiving lots of feedback. And of course, as I say, some of the announcements that the president will make on policy will speak to some of the feedback that we've been receiving.
It sounds to me we're in for a very good couple of weeks on the business reporting front, because not only do we have the medium budget policy statement, we'll have pronouncements that you are projecting ahead from the president. Trudi, thanks for your time today, and all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, we shall be watching. That's Trudi Makhaya, Economic Advisor to President Cyril Ramaphosa. And before her, Gossel, Senior Lecturer in Development Finance, UCT.